So, continuing the source documentation. The ECG, the electronic data capture, is the centralized charting system that a sponsor or CRO has dedicated for operating a study. It allows a central monitoring team to keep track of vital signs, lab draws, whatever data that they have put into the system across all sites. So not just at the site you're monitoring, but across all sites. This allows them to see if they notice any trends, if they notice a lot of high blood pressures, if they notice a lot of high heart rates after administration of medication, if they notice that the patient probably wasn't stable enough to participate in the trial, critical values to see if the PI is giving that individual more attention, like if their blood pressure was high, and this is a high blood pressure study, and say for instance the protocol allows for titrations. They want to make sure that the appropriate titrations on the medication are taking place based on the blood pressure parameters. All of this should be set in your source documentation. And another thing that CRAs often notice, and it's easy to do, is for your log line EDC pages, such as your adverse event pages, your concomitant med pages, your medical history pages. Individuals will mark in the EDC no if it's not applicable to that participant, but they don't have any source documentation to support that. And that's very important. That's one of the things that when an auditor comes in, they pay close attention to. How much data are you entering into the EDC with no source representation? So you got to be very careful with your log lines, because hey, if the patient didn't report any changes in meds, the patient didn't report any adverse events, and your head is no, because they haven't reported anything. But you need to have documentation that you asked that question during that visit and the participant responded no by you checking yes, no, or NA, not applicable. So it's very important that nothing goes into the EDC system and you do not have original source, and that can be electronic or paper, to back it up. Because you don't want to appear that you are creating things. People who do electronic data capture and they do it in real time, you got to be very careful of your mistakes. Because if you got that Dynamap or that blood pressure machine and that EKG machine, and you haven't written those responses down first before entering into your electronic source, you have to make sure that you are entering the correct information. When look at that blood pressure. If it's extremely high, double check that it's extremely high. If it's extremely low, double check this is extremely low. Because you don't want to be entering anything in your CTMS, your electronic charting system on your site, that's not accurate. Because when a CRA has a question about it, hey, was their temperature really 95.2? Or did you meant to put 98.2? Because you know those numbers line up if you're using that 10 key pad. And you know, that visit could have been 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. You don't remember. So you got to be very careful with that documentation. Have somebody verify before the patient leaves. Have that second person, looking at what you jot down to see if it makes sense. There's nothing wrong with somebody verifying. Same thing with your source related to your informed consents. Pay close attention to the date format on your informed consents. If they have sections where patients should answer questions, such as I adhere to this before they even sign, but it's a place for them to initial or check box, or if a section for them to say yay or nay if they want to participate in extra samples like biomarkers or genetic testing, You want to make PKs. You want to make sure that they have signed off on those sections before those assessments are collected. So once again, it goes back to good source documentation. If your source has a place for it, it needs to be completed. If it's not applicable, you can just draw a line through it, initial and date, or you can write NA, initial and date, if it's not applicable for that to that participant. For example, the question is this participant of childbearing potential? For your male participants, this will not be applicable. So you'll have, you wouldn't leave it blank because it's a male. You'll just say NA, male participants. So even for sections or even for questions that are not applicable to each participant, you still want to have a response there. You still want to show that that question was acknowledged, assessed,